Hey everyone, welcome back. Well, the purpose of this video today is to show you how to get into laser engraving using a software called Lightburn. So maybe you had a great idea or an epiphany in the middle of the night. You wanted to buy yourself a laser engraver, something that really interests you. Maybe it would be a great hobby or even a business. So your engraver arrives, you unbox it, you set it up, you're so excited. Now what? How do I go from having my engraver to putting something on a medium, to engraving something? Well, that's the purpose of this video today. Very simply, how to do a basic engraving. And we're going to be using a software called Lightburn. Now, there are many softwares available, some free, some paid. I'm choosing Lightburn because, in my opinion, it is the most user-friendly, and it really just has so many great functions. I'm in no way, shape, or form affiliated with Lightburn. It doesn't benefit me at all to promote this. Having said that, I have used different products. So Lightburn is a paid product. You pay an annual subscription. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but it is, in my opinion, the easiest software to work with. So user-friendly, and there are so many different functions available to you. I've used free versions. And they do the job. I mean, you can use a free version. Laser Gerbil comes to mind. It's a good product, nothing wrong with it. When I was using it, I just did not find it easy to use. So if you're a newbie, you have no idea really what you're doing, this is all brand new to you, I recommend Lightburn because there's so many forums available, there's so many groups on Facebook, and just the customer service through Lightburn is very helpful. They'll answer any questions you have, and there's just a wealth of information out there. So that's going to be the purpose of this video today. So let me open up Lightburn. I'm going to start this video assuming you have Lightburn downloaded, you've started your 30-day free trial, you have your engraver set up to Lightburn already. If you don't know how to do that, there's other videos available. Usually the product you buy, the machine you buy, will have instructions on how to connect it to your software. So this video is assuming you have your machine, you have the software, they're connected. Now what? What do I do? Let's have a quick look at Lightburn and see what it looks like. Alright, so here is what our Lightburn software looks like. So when we open up Lightburn, this is what you see. Let me go to full screen here so you can see the full frame. So I have the Creality Falcon 2, the 22 watt. And here I have my frame, the engraving dimensions of my machine. So it's 400 by 415 millimeters. Now, I want to engrave something. What do I do? Well, just a quick overview of Lightburn. I'm not going to get into this today, but Lightburn has so many features. If you want to design right in the program itself, you have that functionality. It's something you're going to want to play with, something you're going to want to learn how to do. It's not difficult, but you're going to have to learn the functions. But you can make lines, you can make shapes, you can make squares, you can make whatever you want. Really, it's limitless to what you can do. So you can draw shapes in here, you can connect them. Now you can burn that shape if you really wanted to. What I'm going to show you today is how to take an image, perhaps an image you have already, an image you want to download off of, who knows, it could be an AI software or off Adobe stock, or maybe it's just an image of your favorite sports team. Whatever the case may be, how can I get that image and burn it onto what I want to burn? So let's look at that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to import an image. So I'm going to use an image I already have saved on my computer. Just a quick blurb about images. If you're taking something off of the internet, perhaps it's your favorite sports team, if you want to burn that image, I mean, I'm sure there's copyright laws out there. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to get into that. If it's for your personal use, I'm sure there's nothing wrong with it. If you're going to use this as a business and sell things, just be aware there are copyright laws out there. So it is your responsibility to be aware of those. So I'm just going to open up an image. So what you see here is our import tab at the top. So I am going to import an image. So let's go find my image. So you'll find it in whatever folders perhaps you're looking at. So I'm going to go into a folder here under coasters. So I'm going to engrave a coaster today, a slate coaster. So let's find my image. I want this image right here of this humpback whale. So I just went to the folder I had this image saved on. Here I've imported an image. All right. Now this is an image I got from Adobe Stock. So it's already a vector image. So it's really simple. There's not a lot of detail. This will make a great engraving. The more detail you have in your image, the more you'll probably have to adjust that image before you engrave. But when it's a simple image, black, white, simple, no detail, this will make a beautiful engraving. All right, so here I have my picture imported, but as you can see, it's too big. How can we resize that? Well, you can see the image is already selected. And here we have a height and a width tab. So let's take that down to whatever size you want. Now my coasters are 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters. So I'm going to bring this down to somewhere about 85. And you see this lock tab? When you see that locked, this will change both dimensions equally to keep the aspect ratio the same. If you unlock this, well, now you can change the width and the height, and it's only going to change one at a time, so you can skew your image. So if you want to keep the same aspect ratio, make sure this stays locked. I'm going to put this back to my 85 millimeters. I'm going to relock that. All right, so here we go. I have a sized the way I want it. That's what I would like to burn onto my coaster. Now, before we burn, we also have to have the right parameters set. So over here, well, I'll show you the bottom first. You see all these numbers and they're different colors. These are different layers that you can have. So my image right now is selected and I'm on the 0, 0 layer, the black layer. I can put this on any layer I want. If I want to make it layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, you can see the difference. Now this comes in handy when you want to burn different things at different parameters. So maybe I want to burn something deeper. So then I would put it on a separate layer and have that burning at a different power perhaps, or a different speed. This is just simple today. Just one layer, one speed, one power setting. So I've imported my image. I've resized it. Now, speed and power. This is something you're going to have to probably play around with to know exactly how fast you need to burn versus your power settings to get the best look onto whatever it is you're engraving. Having said that, when you buy your machine, it might, likely will, may not, come with some parameters. So it might give you some suggestions on if you're working with basswood, or if you're working with maple, if you're working with slate, if you're working with glass, what speed, what power settings to start out with as a baseline. There's lots of forums out there. If you go on Facebook, laser engraving groups, people tend to be very helpful. You can ask questions, you can see what it is they've been doing. They often tell you their settings that they're using, their speed and power settings. I'm working with slate. I've been working with slate for a little bit. So I'm running my slate around, with the 22 watt Falcon, 30% power. I find that pretty decent. And I'm going to start at about 8,000 speed. Now when I'm talking about power, it's a percentage of your laser output. So 30% power. Speed, most people like to work in millimeters per minute. Now this is really important to make sure you have the right settings. I'm going to show you something really quick. If you go into your Edit tab at the top, here's some things I would suggest to make sure are set up with Lightburn when you install it. So if we go to our Settings tab first, Edit, Settings, Make sure you are set for millimeters per minute. I've seen so many people trying to engrave something. They're saying, I'm at such slow speed. I'll give you an example. 700 speed to 100% power, you want to cut through a 1/8 piece of plywood. Shouldn't be any problem whatsoever. They're saying, I'm running at 700 speed, 100% power, nothing's happening. It's not even making a mark on the board. Why not? Oftentimes, this setting is wrong. They might have it in inches per minute rather than millimeters per minute, which is moving much faster than it should be. So if you're running 700 inches per minute versus 700 millimeters per minute, your laser is moving way too fast. You're not getting that full power transition from your diode into your medium to do your burn or your cut. So make sure that's in millimeters per minute. That is what the vast majority of people are working with. Another side note is when you're looking at other people's settings and what they're using, make sure you know if it's inches per minute or millimeters per minute, because if you want to try it, you want to use the same settings as well. So millimeters per minute, very important. Now, if we go back to our edit device settings, here's another very practical thing to have set. Here's an enable laser fire button and laser on when framing. I would strongly suggest turning both those on, and make sure you have this laser power setting down really low. 1.25% is fine. When you turn that function on, because you want to see where your laser dot is, maybe where you're starting to do your burn, you don't want it to start burning your product. So put it at a very low power setting. It's really, really practical too to laser on when framing. You want to frame your project to make sure the image is going to be where you want it to be, and you can follow that laser to make sure it's exactly where you want it to be. But make sure that power percentage is very low so it's not going to make any marks. But it's still very easy to see the laser at 1%, 1.25%. So that's where I have mine, 1.25%. I have my image. It's about the size I want it to be. So why don't we get going down to the workstation, and I'm going to translate this image onto a slate coaster. Stay tuned. Alright, so here we're down in the shop, and I have my image in Lightburn ready, open, ready to burn. Now before I go ahead and do this, I just noticed something. So you can see I have my image imported here, it's set up, but I have a black square around it. Well, I don't want that black square to be engraved onto my coaster. So what we can do, let's select our image. And at the top here you can see this picture of a single person or 3 people grouped together. This is called our grouping or ungrouping our selection. So right now, because I have an image imported, everything is grouped together. So if I go over to this single person, that's our ungroup function. So I basically want to ungroup all of these lines and make them separate entities. So let's ungroup that. Now what I can do is I can just select that outside line. It doesn't select the rest of the image. I can just select the outside line, simply click delete, and that line is gone. That's what I want. I don't want to have that line burned onto the coaster. I just want the image of the water and the whale. So now I'm going to select that entire image again. I'll regroup it. You don't have to do this, but it just makes things better in case you accidentally grab something and move it. Let's group that back together. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a frame, basically something that represents my coaster. So I'm going to draw a square. I'm going to make that square 100 by 100 because that is the size of my coaster. And I am going to put that square on, remember we talked about these layers at the bottom. See T1 and T2, those are our tool layers. So those are layers that don't actually print. It's a working visual frame or a tool layer. So I'm going to put it on tool layer number 1 so I can see basically something that represents my coaster, but it's not going to output it's not going to burn this square. I'm going to put this image somewhere in the middle of this square. So there's the middle there. I'm going to move it up a little bit in case I ever want to add words underneath this. I'm just going to put that there. There. That's where I want to have my image, somewhere around there. I want to burn that onto a coaster. So I have my power and my speed set. I have my 8,000 speed, 8,000 millimeters per minute. I have my 30 power. I want to make sure that's selected to output. Now, right now I only have line selected, so it's going to only burn the outside of that. I want to fill that. I want to have that filled in. That's what I want to output onto my coaster. So let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, so here I have my slate coaster blank. That's roughly 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters. Not exactly, but it's close enough. That's what they're advertised as. So that's what I'm going to burn onto right here. So let's go ahead and set that into our working area. Now, how do we get our image centered onto this coaster now? It's a good question. This is where that fire laser function is going to come in very handy. So let's have a look at Lightburn again. So in here in Lightburn, you see these different tabs here. We have our cut layers. Our second one here is called our movement layers. So let's go ahead and select that. I got to go ahead and turn my machine on here. So you're going to hear noise probably. Alright, the machine's on, it's fired up, it's connected to the machine. You can see it's ready. Now, how can I make sure that the laser will engrave this image squarely where I want it on the coaster? Let's go ahead and click that fire laser button. Blue light came on top of the laser. Alright, so I can see, you may not be able to see it with the camera, but I can see my laser dot down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that back on. It does time out after a couple seconds, so make sure it's on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run that laser from the corner up the side of the coaster and across the bottom of the coaster, basically to square it up. I want to make sure that that laser is running squarely along that coaster. So that's a kind of a rudimentary way of making sure your image is going to be square on the coaster. There are other ways of doing this. This is sort of just a simple way to do something quickly. Having said that, if it was me, what I'd like to do is I like to have a template burned onto an old piece of plywood. I'll set my machine right onto a piece of plywood. I will burn a template of my coasters. And that way, every time I have a coaster the same size, I can just set it into place on that template, and I know it's going to print where I want it to print. But if you just want to set your piece of wood, your coaster, your slate, whatever it is, anywhere on the table, this is kind of what you need to do. You just need to make sure that that laser is running squarely up both sides of the coaster, and then set it in that bottom left corner. Now in Lightburn, you see here it says job origin. That means if this is this green dot over here, if that is the bottom left of my coaster, that is your job origin in the bottom left side. You can put that to the center of the image. You can put that to the top right, anywhere you want here. But that is where your laser will have to start then. So I'm going to start mine at the bottom left. I'm going to make sure that this start from is selected to current position. So if I manually move my laser, set it to where I want it to be, that's my current position now. So I want it to start from the current position, which I have set to the bottom left of my coaster. That's where my laser is starting. Now when I frame this, I'm going to watch. The laser turns on and I can see exactly where it's going to print that image, which is precisely where I want it to be. Everything looks good. So let's go ahead and burn this. It's where I want it. Let's see what happens. And there we go. Let's see what we ended up with. There you have it. Beautiful engraving, nice simple image. Simple is always the key here, especially as a first-time engraver. Keep your images simple. You're going to get a nice crisp engraving every time. So that's it. You've made your first engraving. Pretty simple. But another question you might have, so the image I used was already a vector image. It was kind of already in a perfect format to engrave. I didn't have to do anything to it. What if you have just a normal JPEG or a TIFF image on your computer? It's just a JPEG, you downloaded off the internet, and you said, wow, I would really like to burn that onto a coaster. What can we do? Well, let's go back and I'll show you another pretty useful function in Lightburn. So let's go back into Lightburn for a moment. Okay, so here's our Lightburn. I have my frame there. This is the size of my coaster. It's my 100 by 100 millimeter coaster. I want to put an image in there, a JPEG that I have on my computer. So I'll show you this example. A friend of mine, he really likes the Chicago Blackhawks. So I said, hey, I'll make him a set of coasters with the Chicago Blackhawks logo on it. So if we go to our import function, so again at the top, import, and go to your folder where you have the image saved. So mine's in here. I'm going to choose this one right here. So this is a JPEG I have saved on my computer. Oh, it's actually a PNG file. Let's import this image into Lightburn. So you double click. Here we go. Now you can see this is not a vector image. This is an image. It's a solid white background, which I don't want. I don't want it to try to burn this solid white background. I just want the outline of this image to be burned. How can you do that easily? Watch this. With your image selected, go up to your Tools tab. And down here you see something that says Trace Image. Let's click on that and see what happens. So here you can see the purple lines. This is tracing our image for us. Normally this threshold of 128 is fine. If you find it's not really catching everything you want traced, you can play with that threshold. This looks perfect. I'm just going to click OK. And look what happens. Now I have just the outline of that image traced. So I could burn just the outline of this. I could, let's put this on a different layer. I have it set to fill, so I could have it burning looking like this. I could just do the outline if I wanted to and just have it burning the outline. Simple as that. Trace image function, you'll use it a lot. It's very practical, very functional. So if I wanted to resize this image to burn onto my coaster, I don't know, let's say 85 again. Boom. You can center that right into your coaster, and there we have it. I'd probably like to burn that if I wanted to as a fill option, and that's the way it will show up. So again, really useful function in Lightburn, the trace image function. Again, this only works well for not too detailed of pictures. A quick note, if you want to burn images, full-on images, you do have that capability. I've done some work with images, photographs, burning onto slate. Looks beautiful. Having said that, it is a learning curve. There's photo editing involved. You have to prepare that image so that it will be in the proper format to burn onto wood or onto slate. There's lots of useful information and videos out there to help you with that. I'm not going to go into that. This is just for a simple burn. You know, you just got your machine. I want to put an image onto something. It's pretty easy. Lightburn is so simple. So I hope you found these videos useful. If you have any questions, feel free to send them in the comments and we'll do our best to answer them. I hope you enjoyed and have a good day.